Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time we are on the Lost Crater, playing as the Dark Elves against the forces of the Skaven. As you can see, we have our enemy surrounded. We definitely caught him in the pit here with a lot of light cav. And this matchup, I know that Skaven have huge issues with cavalry, and I was essentially seeking to exploit it to the fullest. So we've got 4 units of Doomfire Warlocks, including the Slaash Harvesters in the back. They're very powerful against Skaven because they're just their cotton candy blasters are just so good at annihilating squishy infantry, and if they get into the back lines, they can really just annihilate cannon crews. Basically anything except Stormvermin, and maybe Hellpit Abominations and Doom Wheels are very, very weak against these guys. Plus, it means that we've got a bajillion bound spells. We've got 8 instances of bound Doom, or 6 instances of bound Doom and Darkness, or Soul Blight. Sorry, we've got 6 instances of bound Lesser Doom Bolt, and we do have an instance of bound Soul Stealer and 2 instances of Word of Pain. 2 Cold One Knights, of course, providing a bit of AP and anti-large against units like the Doom Wheel specifically. The front line here, pretty cheap: 2 Bleak Swords, 2 Blackheart Corsairs, and the Sister of Slaughter, as well as Malekith on a Raptor with the Gaze of Malice, Soul Stealer, Chill Wind, as well as Power of Darkness. And of course he does have Destroyer and Stand Your Ground. For my opponent, he did decide to go with a bit of an artillery-heavy build, but a bit of an interesting deployment, perhaps figuring that he'd get some nice flanking shots as I advanced into him, or perhaps hoping to split my forces and getting a bit of a pincer, perhaps coming in from both flanks. He did deploy his artillery over here. He's got Warplane Cannon, he's got Plague Claw Catapults, some Clarinet Spears, most likely counting on the relative mobility of the Skaven. If I went with an infantry-heavy force, he'd be able to flex. And you can see this side artillery battery is in a pretty good spot to open fire. Over here, though, you can see Clan Rats as well as Skaven Slaves making up the brunt of the front, as well as 2 Stormmen and 1 Stormmen Halberd. So a somewhat expensive backline, but a very cheap sort of frontline chaff troops. A Warlord mounted on a Bonebreaker with, I think, most of his kit. I could be wrong. I don't really use this guy all that often. He's got Rally, he's got Verminous Valor, he's got Deadly Onslaught. So he doesn't have his items, but he's got everything else, I think. A Hellpit Abomination for the anti-large and AP, of course. Pretty potent unit, especially because Dark Elf players don't usually bring. Dark Elf players won't usually be bringing shooting in too much quantity, in my experience. And then a single Doom Wheel over there. So you can see we're going to push forward. You can see, you know, some Plague Claw shots going in, hurting our poor Blackheart Corsairs. They're not having the best day. And then a few shots from the Warplane Cannon really beating down on our poor Cold One Knights. But what are we going to do here? We're going to collapse in with the Doomfire Warlocks and promptly take this Plague Claw to task. You can see when I deployed my troops all around the map. In each corner I had a unit of light cav. In every sort of middle here, and the middle here on the flanks, I had a unit of light cav. So I was ready that no matter where my opponent was, I'd have units ready to go. And immediately you can see we drop Soul Blight, debuffing armor, debuffing weapon strength, and immediately these Plague Claw crew are going to rout. The Warplaning crew does not last much longer. And you can see the Cold One Knights, you know, they lost 7 models, definitely not in the best position, but we're able to pressure these troops. And the thing is, Clan Rat Spears just do not have the melee stats to hold up here. They've got terrible melee attack. They do have some bonus for Slaughter. I would be remiss to miss that. They've got bonus for Slaughter of 9, which is not very good. Even compared to other spear units, that's pretty bad. And you can see we're really taking them to task here, just destroying them. And the Cotton Candy Blasts, I do believe they actually have a splash value. And of course, with their low armor, or at this point non-existent armor, with Soul Blight on the field, these guys are just falling apart. And then the Fear, of course, kicking in from the Cold Ones, and things are just really, really bad. And these guys are not going to be able to last. Now, my opponent here is waddling over with his Hellpit Abomination, but otherwise, you know, things are a little grim. Over here in the pits, my opponent does dive a Doom Wheel in, looking to be a nuisance, but we are going to countercharge with Malekith, as well as the Raptor squad here, the Cold One Knights diving in, and they are going to take this Doom Wheel to Pound Town. You can see he's really having a bad day. Unfortunately, over here, I did try to get a little cheeky, looking to knock out a unit of Skaven Slaves before my opponent retreated to his own forces, hoping my opponent wasn't paying as good attention as he was, so we dive in, took quite a bit of damage, but honestly, it probably wasn't worth the 2 models of Doomfire Warlocks I lost in the process. But, you know, we did some work. In the meantime, over here, we are going to try to drop a small Hellbolt or Doom Bolt there, which doesn't do too much. But, you know, we've done some work. The Cold One Knights here, they've really put these Clan Rat Spears through the grinder. These Clan Rat Spears over here routed, and we actually shattered a unit. So essentially, my opponent's already down about 2,000. He's lost, like, Clan Rat Spears or another. He's lost about 2,300 or so gold, just between the 2 artillery pieces and the infantry. And these guys will, assuming these guys do rally at all, and I haven't lost too much over there. Anytime on the peripheral exchange, you can see the Skaven Slaves getting dumpstered by Bleak Swords, though surprisingly, you know, they're inflicting some casualties. I'm always surprised. Skaven Slaves, I think because of the strength in numbers, do tend to do at least a little bit of damage. Over here, we are going to get a nice little Soul Stealer, as well as a Soul Blight going down on all these troops, which is going to make our troops much more effective. And you can see here, the Stormmen, although they will force us off, you know, we're doing okay. Over here, the Doomula is being chased down by the Cold One Ice. I'm surprised that they can actually chase it down, given that it is technically faster than they are. But, you know, they're able to jab it, poke it in the butt, and they're doing quite some work. On the periphery, in the meantime, we are going to chase down my opponent's troops. The Clan Rats are kind of routed. League Swords pushing forward. Over here, the Sister Slaughter engaging Stormmen Halberds, or Stormmen, and doing pretty well at it. And of course, the Black Orc Crusaders finally freed up, pushing forward. Malekith, unfortunately, a little isolated here, but we are going to get a nice little chill wind, doing a bit of damage to these troops, as our very evil and very nasty Light Cav here is sneaking around the flank, and we're going to be able to get some meaty recharges pretty shortly. Anytime over here in the back, you can see we're actually going to get greedy and throw some our Doomfire Warlocks at the spears. So in case you're ever wondering just how badly these spears are going to get mauled, this is the perfect case example, and you can see the Clan Rat spears just get destroyed by the Doomfire Warlocks. Over here, once again, we're picking off Skaven Slaves, we're picking off these fleeing troops, making sure they don't come back. And now we are going to get a nice little jump here on the Warlord. We are going to drop a Soul Blight, debuffing all these troops. Malekith is in the pits here, slaying it out with all these Stormmen, doing a lot of damage. And we're really going to be able to take this guy to Pound Town. And with Stand Your Ground going down, we're in a pretty good spot. You can see the Hell Pit Abomination waddling over. But my opponent at this point is basically in a terrible spot. You can see a bit of a mistake here on my part. The Cold One Knights, I should have been pulling them back into the main fight here. But unfortunately, I didn't notice them. But at this point, it's going to be game. My opponent is simply going to GG out. There wasn't too much he could have done there at this point. He was basically reduced to his Lord in the Hell Pit Abomination, with the Stormmen getting mauled in the center. So I think, and this goes with my video that with the rant about Skaven's weakness to cavalry, I think this perfectly demonstrated. Now, granted, my opponent's deployment was not ideal, but the way the Skaven anti-large options can practically be ignored a lot of the time, and then their artillery just routes, I think was demonstrated pretty aptly here. The Doomfire Warlocks, you can see, had an absolute field day against most of the Skaven infantry, just destroyed them very decisively. And you can say that shows Doomfire Warlocks are really strong, but honestly, against a faction like, say, even Empire, state troop spears, they'd hold you up. They'd be a major pain in the rear. And the Empire would have actual heavy cav, which could run you over. Like that's like there's dwarves, miners would be a huge nuisance. You wouldn't really be able to do too much to them. Plus the crew's better than than the Skaven crew, so they'll hold better. And you can see, you know, the Black Orc Crusaders, all these troops did okay. The thing is, Skaven just, they don't really have the tools to deal with mass cav either. That's just one of their disadvantages. And I can't say I played particularly well. I did definitely take advantage of my opponent's isolated artillery deployment. Bit of a mistake there, underestimating the potential of Dark Elf Light Cav. But it's why when I usually play a Skaven, I usually try to do a sort of a wide bunkerish formation against, say, Dark Elves. But nonetheless, I do think it's very disadvantageous to the Skaven. They just can't really do much against Cav builds. If you're looking to trash Skaven with, say, Dark Elves, I think this is a pretty good build. There's very little Skaven can do to counter this. A lot of Stormmen Halberds would give you some trouble, probably. Some Hell Pit Abominations could be a bit of a problem. So against those, you do have some decent infantry corps to deal with them. You could obviously always drop the Bleak Swords in favor of Dread Spears if you were really worried about it. But honestly, Doomfire Warlocks will do decent, as will Cold One Knights. And there's plenty of other ways you could take this. You could also drop, you know, Black Orc Crusaders from Dark Shards, Mounted Dark Shards, whatever. There's a lot of ways you could do this. But there's not too much Skaven can do against this sort of build. As for my opponent, I definitely don't deploy artillery so isolated. Against a faction that has strong light cav, that's just not a good idea to isolate your troops. Unless you yourself are similar in a sense, unless you're playing like, I don't know, Wood Elves or something. I don't know. You can get a bit ballsy if you're doing Wood Elves or High Elves or some Beastmen or something. Then you can maybe pull a fast one on like of this sort. But otherwise, I wouldn't really recommend it. Regardless, good game to my opponent here. Why not Zoidberg? I do hope you guys found this hopefully informative and hopefully enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below to keep up with additional content. If you have any comments, any criticism, if you've got any strats to deal with heavy cav you'd like to share, anything like that, be sure to share and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.